In October 2015, Dr. Edward Cornwell III, the surgeon-in-chief at Howard University Hospital, delivered the first Grand Rounds lectureship in honor of Dr. Levi Watkins, a pioneer in both cardiac surgery and civil rights. After the lectureship, he sat down with Dr. Robert Higgins, the surgeon-in-chief at the Johns Hopkins Hospital. As past presidents of the Society of Black Academic Surgeons, both Dr. Cornwell and Dr. Higgins discussed the important role SBAS plays in encouraging African American surgeons and medical students to pursue academic careers.
You're part of an organization, the Society of Black Academic Surgeons, which we both have near and dear to our hearts, and Levi was a member of. Can you talk to me about the Society of Black Academic Surgeons and its role in the future as we lead American surgery?
If you look at SBAS today through its first 25 years, 1989 to 2014, you see it's important for diversity of another court because of the plight of quote-unquote black males in America. The numbers throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s who successfully got through high school, interested in the sciences, successfully got through college, got through pre-med, got into medical school, graduated medical school, got into surgery, trained in surgery. All those blips for a whole host of social reasons that tripped up black males led to an interesting dynamic in academic surgery, particularly among blacks. The cause of racial diversity, which SBAS was formed for, is springboarded by gender diversity. And so you see now, as SBAS celebrates its first woman president, Patricia Turner, you see that SBAS and the things that it has promoted is the similar sort of things that you would see over the years in the 90s and 2000s at King Drew and at Howard. Howard, I can tell you, since the first woman graduated the surgical residency in 1976, has trained over 65 women. A lot of residencies don't keep that statistic, but I'm sure as a percentage it's probably at the very top of residencies in this country. And that's because as residents of color choose to apply to Howard, a greater percentage of those are being women. And so we see the same thing at SBAS. We see the issue of gender diversity now being promoted through SBAS as much as the issue of racial diversity. And as we do that and we become the more complete society as it relates to gender diversity, just as we did through the earlier generation in racial diversity, I think the same observation is going to take place. That when I was at Hopkins, we had Hopkins residents, black and white, presenting at the Society of Black Academic Surgeons, Hopkins faculty of all ethnicities presenting at the Society of Black Academic Surgeons. I think we're going to see the inclusiveness as a theme, and for any of those of us, such as yourself and myself, who have as part of our responsibility searching high and low for the best and the brightest to train, to educate his students, to train his residents, and to recruit his faculty, we're going to see that that attitude promoted by individual institutions and as a whole by SBAS is going to be a great resource. Networking, approaches to where we might find the best and brightest, and expanding opportunities. So that also, I think, is something Levi would smile upon. We've come a long way, but we still have a ways to go.
Fantastic. So as you think about your time as a member of SBAS, can you relate what your fondest memory is or what the high point has been?
I think probably the first thing that comes to mind is 2004, the year I was president. And I was quite anxious and thrilled to be president the year that the meeting was in Washington, D.C. So there I was at my native Washington, D.C. Levi was there. Dr. LaFall, the man who was, after my own father, the most influential man in my own career, was there, and have an opportunity to deliver the presidential address. And I called it The Advantage of Disadvantage, and how I would come to SBAS, I would come to the National Medical Association surgical section, and I'd get there, and I would be sitting holding court with Claude Organ for 45 minutes. We would talk about the next grant, the next paper, what you'll work on. And I said many of my colleagues never had such an opportunity for FaceTime and individual discussion as I had coming through SBAS and through the NMA surgical section. And I used, again, that experience to tell folks about leadership and its different styles. Two of the more important supporters of my career, Claude Organ and Julie Freischlag, who succeeded Dr. Cameron, who recruited me to Hopkins as chair of the Department of Surgery here at Hopkins for 10 years. She inherited me and was a great supporter of mine. And yet her and Dr. Organ had two totally different styles. Dr. Organ, when you'd see him, he'd say, shake your hand, and he'd have that mischievous grin on his face, and he'd say, you sure look well rested. And only in our type A, work ethic driven profession of surgery is that not a compliment. You'd be anxious, I was on call just the night before I jumped on the plane, Dr. Organ. You would be, he knew he could make you feel uncomfortable by telling you how well rested you look. Fast forward, Julie Freischlag becomes my surgical chair. You know, we're at a busy urban level 1 trauma center. As the chief of trauma, I'm taking trauma call. And Julie would always say, you okay? You look tired, you know? And finally I had to tell her, say, Dr. Freischlag, I haven't been on call for 3 days. These bags under my eyes aren't going anywhere. I earned those bags. I'm fine. And I would always point that out. I said there were 3 women that always worried if I was working too hard. My wife, my mother, and my chair. And so Julie Freischlag, who was worried about if everything's okay, worried about your development, her style of leadership was important in my career. Dr. Organ's style of leadership, totally different, diametrically opposed, similarly important in my career. Diversity of approach, and yet they're both extremely effective and very important in my career.
Fantastic. Finally, we really appreciate you taking the time to reflect, but what advice would you have for young residents and faculty about the value of being a member of organizations like the Society of Black Academic Surgeons?
I think residents in that part of their career, when they're trying to find their way, if you were to say one of the most important things for them to make the right decision in their career, networking and role modeling. And SBAS is about networking and role modeling. And it unequivocally is one of the most important meetings that I've gone to. Since 1989, I've missed only 2, both for very personal family reasons that I couldn't avoid. I've been at every other Society of Black Academic Surgeons meeting. And it's evolved to the point where I meet someone and I say, how come I don't know you? That's what it was like the first 15 years. Now, the fact that I have residents of color coming from every place who I've never met is just a new thrill to meet them. And it's not at all unusual for me not to have known or to see these people before. And so it's been extremely important for me, both at the early developmental phase of my career when I was still in training, and even now as I, like you, are a past president and seeing the next generation of folks coming through, I get the same warmth about it that I got then.
Fantastic. It's clear by your reflections today, by your grand rounds, by your presence, that we're lucky to have you as a member of our extended family and as a leader in American surgery. We look forward to great things as we train the next generation of surgeons. Thank you for your reflection and your time.
Well, thank you, Bob. But let me just say, your appointment to this position of chair is historically important, tangibly important, and symbolically important. So there's a whole new group of people that are going to be thrilled and inspired by you. So Levi, come to the end, come back to where we began. Levi would be smiling.
Well, I think the baton's been passed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Great.
Thanks.